All right, so you might be asking yourself, why are the lights green? Well, because this thing's really green. Like, really, really green. This is the Jolata. I don't know what it's called. I know that's the brand. And let's see on the front, it says, making the net work for you. So presumably this is a network appliance of some sort. It is about 1U. It does have little rack ears that it comes with. And it's a very interesting little box. And I picked it up on eBay for about $200. Picked up a pair of them. And I think they were like $460 or something like that, or best offer for the pair of them. So I offered them down to like 400 shipped, and I just couldn't pass it up. And it's just a very, very interesting semi-custom enclosure with a motherboard and a power supply and a full-size X16 PCI Express cutout, not unlike the DFI AMD box. The difference is that this one is Intel, and you guys know how much I like Intel, especially like refurb Intel stuff. I really like the older stuff. Newer stuff is great because of quick sync and all that, but price to performance, AMD is kind of killing it right now. But yeah, so this is a mini ITX 1U with basically not a whole lot else going on. The entire thing is made of steel, and it's all powder coated. Like every single inch of this freaking thing is powder coated green. And there's the model number, JH-100. That power light, by the way, also green. Very, very green. Like these lights green. So that's pretty cool. I don't know who thought this was a good color scheme, because this is very NVIDIA looking, but maybe it's the company who ordered these. It's very unique. It's not Backblaze red. It's not Intel blue. It's not Server Builds blue. It is very bright green. On the back, as you can see, there's no I/O shield per se. There is a perfect cutout for the I/O. So we've got dual Intel Ethernet, 4 USB 2.0, USB 3.0, 2 ports, and then VGA, DVI, COM, HDMI, PS2 for keyboard only, audio, and then a funky looking power jack. And the cool thing about this power jack, grab the power supply. Here's the power supply. It's a laptop style power brick, like most of these tiny computers, but it's got a spinny thing on it. So when you plug that guy into the power jack, you can actually screw it on and it locks in. So that's pretty cool. The power supply itself is a Pico PSU, which you don't see very often. It's a 120 watt model, I believe. There's room for venting on the top and on the sides and a little bit on the bottom. Both sides look the same, by the way. You can't tell right now, but there's room for a 40 mil on this side and a 40 mil on this side. They only came with one installed fan, and it was exhaust. I'm not sure how adequate that is considering the hardware. It is an i3 4130T with 16 gig of very low profile RAM and a 64 gig mSATA SSD. This motherboard actually has dual mSATA slots, which is very interesting. The second slot is underneath the motherboard, which is really no way around it. A pain in the ass to get to because you have to remove the entire motherboard from this case. There's no like trap door or anything underneath here. And really there's only 4 screws to take it apart, 2 on each side. I'm not going to show me doing that. Magic of editing. So, all right. So the top cover just slides off and reveals a mini ITX motherboard and room for a 3.5 or a 2.5. I believe you can fit a 2.5 in a single slot X16 card. So you can fit like a 2.5-inch SSD down here while you have a card up here. Very interesting little box. You can see there's the Pico PSU plugged into the 24 pin, really it's just a 20 pin. And then a couple wires bunched up here, a floppy connector, SATA power. And then we have a 4-pin coming off of this guy, off of a Molex of all things, running down over here for the CPU. The SATA's in the top over here. Sorry, I'm trying to do this backwards. And then if you can see that RAM, like look how low profile that RAM is. That RAM is so low profile. And basically a stock Intel heatsink is on here. The motor for this thing touches the lid. So there's no room for anything else other than a stock Intel heatsink. Funny, one of these boxes, actually the one I have in my hand, they're supposed to come with i3 4130Ts, which are low power i3 dual core with hyperthreading. I powered this one up and I was like, 4 cores, 8 threads. That's interesting. And it turns out it's in i7 4765T. So apparently that works, and apparently that does not push over the power limit for this. And I don't know who installed that, but the spec sheet for this PC did not say that it had that. I kind of lucked out on that because those chips are very expensive. Even though they're only 4th gen i7s, they are, pretty damn expensive. They're like probably 200 something a piece. So yeah, it's nice to see that this can run that. I don't know that I could run a GPU and the i7 on this little 120 watt power supply. I don't know that I would really want to, but it is what it is. So yeah, that's about it. I'll be probably doing more stuff in the future with industrial motherboards like this, because they're popping up more and more often as an easy way to get cheap components and cheap hardware. So this was an industrial PC, presumably. Maybe it says it's a network appliance, but I don't know that they were being used that way. It came with a odd version of CentOS installed with a bunch of user accounts and data that probably should have been wiped off of it. So I wiped all that, but it looked like it was being used as a client PC. Actually, both of them look like that. So I'm not really sure what's going on with these. I tried doing some research on the company. There's not a whole lot of information about them except for they create sort of these one-off builds, and it's very in-depth to be a one-off, like low production. So they must be creating at least a decent amount of these, producing a decent amount of these. Otherwise, they wouldn't get the return on this chassis. I mean, this chassis is designed specifically for this motherboard. I mean, you can see the cutout. I don't know of any other motherboard that has ports arranged in that fashion. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to end up doing with this. Maybe I'll turn it into like a little emulation box I can carry around with me. Throw in a 1 terabyte SSD or something like that in the bottom. Throw a GT 1030. And then I've got an i7 emulation box, I guess. I don't know. It looks freaking cool, I can tell you that much. Aside from looking cool and being pretty low power, and they're surprisingly quiet too. That's the other thing. Even with the 40 mil fan that was in here, I took it out of this one, but the other one still has it. Even with that 40 mil fan, it wasn't super loud. So maybe it could make like a decent home theater PC. I'd be interested to know if anyone out there knows what this thing is and what it was originally used for, because I think that's almost more interesting than the box itself, because a lot of stuff like this flies under the radar, and people like me don't know they don't even know it exists. I'd like to know, the history of it, who designed it, or why it was designed, what its original use. Why did they pick this motherboard? This motherboard is, has dual SATA, dual Ethernet. Presumably it's a network appliance, I guess. Why is there an i7 in it? That doesn't really make any sense. There's this really, really low profile RAM. It's not super necessary to have that low profile RAM. Just little things like that. The design decisions are perplexing to me, but maybe they make sense with a little bit of context. Unfortunately, I don't think that there's any more of these on eBay, at least right now. I will keep my eyes open, and I'll post some on the forums if we do see any more of these. I did see about 10 of these in the first go round, and since there were only 10, I notified all of the donators and patrons. So if you do donate, which I thank you, to everyone that does that, it really helps me out a lot. I put all that money back into buying stuff that I don't need, like this, so I can mess around with it. If you do donate, I try to give you a little bit of heads up on stuff like this, where like if I let 6,000 people know, they'll be gone in seconds. But if I let a couple hundred donators know, maybe you guys will get the chance to buy them first. And then say, if I sold one, I'd probably sell it to donators first, or just, list it up there and say, hey, look, you guys were interested in this. I don't really need 2 of them. It is what it is. I just thought I would give you a short overview of this box. Tell you I think it's cool, and I think the color is awesome. I love powdered coated stuff like this. I'm a huge sucker for that. I really wish I could show you how... Listen to that switch. I really wish I could show you how bright green that LED is, but it is freaking cool. Yeah, aside from my own, I guess I just think it's cool, and I sort of lucked out on the hardware. Sorry, I'm just kind of showing off in this video, but hopefully you enjoyed it, and maybe got your brain turning a little bit as far as neat little systems like this. So I guess the long story short is, you never know what you're going to find on eBay. Just keep your eyes out and be able to do research fast, and see what you have in front of you and see if it's worth buying, because who knows, maybe you'll end up with something like this. So that's about it for this one, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace.